Hey everybody, this is Patty Minch. I wanted to share this video to kind of piggyback off of what Adrienne shared in hers. She did a really nice job of showing behind the scenes, so I wanted to show a little bit about what the interface looked like between the teacher and student. So it's a little bit confusing here with split screen, but on the left-hand side, this is what the teacher would see on their screen and what could be projected. And then on the right-hand side, this is what students would have on their device, whether it's an iPad or computer. If students were doing this as a student-paced lesson, they would have these arrows and they would navigate through the slides this way, but because I'm doing this as a teacher-led, I'll control it on the teacher site, and then you'll be able to see how the student screens kind of mimic that. So you would set up a Nearpod, or you could set up a Nearpod so that it pretty well mimics what you would do in a regular lesson, so having essential questions posted, sharing your objectives, and then kind of giving prompts as to what the next slides might hold. The first one, the students up here are going to see the question or the prompt. This is kind of like the getting started sort of thing. And then here, this is the teacher screen, and I can see what the teachers are drawing on all of theirs. So as a class of 1 in this one, there's only one screen, but if you had 25 students, you would see a grid of all the students and all of their screens. So for the students, they can do a couple of things. They can draw using just kind of like a pen. They could highlight text. So if you had a picture of text or whatever, they could go through and highlight what they thought was important, depending on what your prompt was. For students like myself, who are not very good at drawing with their finger on an iPad, you can also add a text box and type. Or students could also go on and they could look at their files and insert a file, or look on Google Images to try to show their understanding in a variety of ways. And that's one thing that's really powerful with Nearpod. Once a student is done, they would submit their answer. They would get a prompt saying it's been submitted. And then over here on this side, you would see that the student has their work done. A really cool thing too is if you had a lot of students and you had one that you wanted to share kind of as an example, I could press the share button, and on the student screen they would see an anonymous screenshot of whatever example you wanted to share. And then you can kind of go through and share examples or maybe even non-examples, and oftentimes students want theirs to be shared, so that's a good motivator. Moving on through the slides, here we have a poll that you could take, and again, you can share the results of the poll. Students would submit their answers if they ever conducted a scientific experiment, submit it, and then over here you would see all of your responses. And again, because there's only one student in this course, it's a little bit different. Then I can go through, I could push it out, and I could share with the class what the results of in a pie chart form. So as we start to explore, the first one I put here is a virtual field trip, and these are awesome, especially for my students, many of whom have not been out of Lancaster City, to show them different places around the world, just to pique their curiosity, maybe ask them some questions to see what they know. These are really cool on iPads because students can move their iPads around the room, and it follows. Nearpod has a expanding list of virtual field trips that you can do of pretty much anywhere in the world. And it's also cool too to have this up on the board and just share this with students. Nearpod does a really nice job of creating different ways for students to show their understanding through formative assessment. So as you guys saw before, this is all about the scientific method, and so students are starting to use drag and drop to fill in the blank about what they think is correct. I'm just going to fill this out real quick. Once I hit done, they can get their scores, and then also these are shared with you through the report at the end. Again, you can add different slides as different prompts to kind of guide yourself through the lesson, or to guide students through the lesson. Here's another opportunity for students to share what they know, and so much unlike a PowerPoint presentation, this is really interactive with students, where students have to type out their responses and then submit them to you, and then you kind of have that as your formative assessment, and you can get students working that way. Students know that you can see their answers, so it definitely motivates them to get their work done, and you can set timers and they'll get their work done in a certain amount of time. Another thing that I really like about this as far as the formative assessment piece is you can add a poll, and based on the objectives that I presented at the beginning of the lesson, I can ask students, which ones do you feel like you've accomplished so far? They can click 2, 3, 1, none of them, and then it kind of gives me a really good idea of where the class is as a whole and what they understand or feel that they don't understand. One last thing that I'll share with you guys is with videos, if students have their own headphones, it's beneficial that you could have them watch them on their own screens, or you also have the option just to show it on the teacher screen. So if I have this projected on the board, I could have it disabled, and this is what you can see here. It's paused on this device. So for students, they would see kind of the picture of the video, but over here, all they would, or on the board, they would see the actual video. So that way you don't have 25 iPads blaring the same video at the same time. So it's kind of a classroom management sort of thing. At the end of the lesson, I'll kind of skip through a bunch of this stuff. You can end with a quiz. And so with the quiz, students would go through, select their answers. I'll just select some random stuff. And again, as the teacher, you can see right off the bat whether they're getting their answers correct or not. This is taking a little bit of time to load, but as I go through this, I think I remember some of these answers from class today. So I left one empty, but here you go. So I have my report. If I were to hit share, it would share share that student's score, and also lets them go through and see which ones they've got, what they've got correct or whatever. So this is a quick overview of what the interface would look like between students and teachers through Nearpod. I tried to throw in a couple different slides there to show you a lot of the different capabilities in terms of formative assessment and getting feedback from students. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you check out Nearpod.